keeping up with my channel, you know that I talk about a lot of different aspects of the automotive market. Between cars, news, and reviews, I like to explore a lot of different concepts. And one of the real interesting concepts that I have really been paying attention to, if you haven't already, is EVs. Now, EVs across the YouTube spectrum have shown that they are not exactly doing that well. I wonder why. But EVs are going to be the future, and there has been a lot of commitment between the government and the legacy automakers to promote the idea that we will become a zero carbon emission society roughly around 2050. But in this video, I want to explore the idea and the reality that EVs just may not be the thing that we need right now. So in this video, I will go ahead and explore that. And with that being said, stick around and stay tuned because you are now watching The Breakdown. Hey yo, run the lights. If you haven't already, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. It always means a lot to me and the YouTube algorithm. So several things, one of them being the current scenario of EVs, why they aren't selling, the factors that go into that. We'll also be talking about the realities of EV ownership and the potential reasons of why EVs aren't exactly the best idea for us to move forward, even though it seems like it is. My videos are typically an analysis, not necessarily a criticism, even though this will have some personal views, but that's okay. We all have our personal views. We all have opinion. But because of that, I want you guys to understand that this is in no way form an indictment on you or your personal viewership. So with that being said, let's go ahead and take that deep dive into EVs. Keeping up with EVs, you know that they are fairly recent, or at least it seems so. If you don't know, EVs or electric vehicles are essentially very different than their internal combustion engine parts. The average car has roughly around 2,000 to 20,000 parts, whereas the EVs really are less than 300, I believe. So because of that, EVs seem like a simpler solution because most companies are looking at the overall spectrum of how they can absolve themselves of being responsible for climate change. Go f***ing figure. And for all of you that don't believe climate change is real, I'll let you argue in the comments.
Don't forget it's hot down there.
Anyway, so EVs are fairly new in our society, but they have been around for the last 100 years and they've made great strides. And the reality is that for many people, they view EVs as not only a point of simplicity, but they also view it as a technological innovation. So as we begin to go into a zero carbon emission society, many car makers have found themselves wanting to pledge to committing to producing more and more EVs. Now, the truth is that when it comes to EVs, they are not necessarily all they're cracked up to be. And the first point that I want to make out is simply price. So think about it like this. With EVs, yes, you are paying the initial upfront cost, but between depreciation and the amount of times you have to charge, especially if you don't have a home, you're probably going to have to go to a fast charger. Now, if you don't know what a fast charger is, a fast charger is a little different. With many Americans not really owning homes like that, much of us will probably have to go to chargers. And the average charger is set by either a state utility agency or a privatized company. Now, there are several companies out there such as Electrify America, ChargePoint, EVgo, which by the way has a partnership with Tesla. And you'll begin to learn the more I talk about EVs, you'll start to hear Tesla's name come up in many different facets. And I want to let you guys know now that it's not by coincidence. So in addition to the expensiveness of EVs alongside the overall cost that's probably going to come along with charging, you don't really make that big of a difference. I can even tell you that even here, the average cost for kilowatts per hour, which is how they judge you when you charge your car, is roughly about 48 cents per kilowatt for a DC2 or a fast charger. AC charger is roughly about 5 or 6 cents, but it's not that much more convenient. And if you don't know anything about the price set, the more times we use this resource, the more that they can charge for it. And it seems cheap up front because you may be paying somewhere between $15 to $20 for a full charge, but the charge will only last you a couple of days, which leads me to my next point. In addition to the price and initial upfront cost, while it may seem as though that car companies have streamlined the overall efficiency of these cars, the reality is that they don't get the same gas mileage or charge mileage that you would like to think. Let me explain. For a lot of America's road infrastructure, we have to function off of the highways. The thing is that when it comes to EVs and it comes to charge mileage, they don't operate as efficiently on the highway as they do the street. Unless you're in an urban city like New York or California, you're probably going to rely off the highway to get from point A to point B. And even in certain parts of California, even though there's cities close to each other, it still can take you anywhere between 30 to 45 minutes just to get 3 blocks, and the traffic is insane. But the reality is a lot of our road infrastructure is not designed to carry the charge mileage that current electric cars are making, which also shows that while we may think that EVs are the greatest thing, range anxiety is a bitch. Range anxiety and highway do not mix. Wouldn't recommend it, 0 stars.
Shit, thanks for all that.
Oh no!
And our infrastructure are truly not designed to handle the workload of which many of these cars will be holding in the next 10 to 15 years. Which leads me to my next point is supply chain and demand. If you haven't checked out my other video about car quality and why it seems like your car doesn't last, go check that out because I talked about this before. But in many cases are just not designed to in terms of build quality because we are focusing more and more on technology. As EVs heavily rely on the telematics and connectivity of that car and the manufacturer's server, in addition to it relies off a lot of the internal computers that take up the bulk of the build quality of the car. And there's a lot less mechanical parts that are involved in the making of electrical vehicle. And that means that a lot of the things that are run inside the car are more so technologically driven. Even with the electrical zero carbon emissions from the car, there are a lot of emissions being made to produce these batteries. And so what ends up happening is that basically a lot of the cars are putting out 6 to 7 times more carbon emissions just to produce one vehicle, unlike the internal combustion engines, which basically use a lot of metal and a lot of plastic parts. And it would seem as though while EVs may be the new wave, the overall reward to them is just not worth it. The other thing is the cost of ownership in addition to the actual ownership experience. Tying all those things together, owning an EV is probably one of the most interesting things that you can think about. While you don't have to worry about oil changes and tire rotations and all those things, they still require some level of maintenance. More importantly, as the Tesla market continues to drop the overall value of their car as being the benchmark, there is a lot of money that goes along into a sunk cost of a battery. One example is that Tesla will sometimes force you to fix your battery before you actually sell the car. And this is also the price of being too connected between the manufacturer and the consumer. And that's where the ownership experience completely changes, because unlike the vehicles of yesteryear where you could do anything that you wanted to do to these vehicles and there was nothing that the manufacturer could say and or do about it, there begins to get some limitations about what they can and can't do. And quite frankly, I don't want no manufacturer touching my car if I didn't borrow it. Now, y'all don't know me. I ain't owning I'm never owning a car. I don't want ever again, but that's just me. The overall experience of owning an electric vehicle that are involved will make it much more difficult for you as an owner to completely own your car. In fact, you may never actually own your car because of that. In addition, there also is the amount of time that will be invested. I don't mean invested in terms of sunk maintenance costs. I mean the literal time. When you are charging your car, and remember our infrastructure is not where it needs to be, when you're charging your car, it takes anywhere between 30 to an hour and a half to fully charge your car at 80%. Now, hear me out. While that may not seem like a long time, that's somebody's lunch, that's somebody's errands, that's somebody's ride to the park, and then the range anxiety kicks in if you can't properly get to a charging station the way you need to. Even worse, you also will have to wait significantly longer because unlike gas stations, we do not have charging stations that we can run to and may have to possibly pay a slightly higher convenience fee. No, you're gonna have to fucking wait, okay? You ever been in line for a charging station? It's a bitch. Now, it would seem as though the sales of EVs has slowed down, and for good reason, because honestly, the owner experience just sucks. Between the amount of time you have to charge and the overall consumption of the charging alone makes it for a terrible experience. And while many manufacturers have pledged that they are going to do everything they can to get us to zero carbon emissions, the reality is that we are just not ready for all electric vehicles. But rant aside, that's all I got for today. Let me know in the comments what you think about the EV sector. If you think we are ready, if you think that there is a good reason why we should or should not get EVs, and why you think that the people are just not trying to do it anymore. But I think I did a good job of laying it out. So with that being said, until the next episode, go check out one of my other videos because I need that. But with that being said, until the next video, I will see you guys later.